All right. Sarah, this is the third episode of the variety show of Liam Hare, and we have a very special guest, local musician Joshua Batten. So, how about us introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hey Liam, g'day everyone. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So, for those who don't know, Joshua Batten is a local Australian musician I met at the gig for Untangled for their Landlines Down on Broadway tribute show, and I've been following him ever since then.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board, mate. It's always a pleasure when I've seen you in the comments or when I get a follow up message from you. So thanks so much for all the support.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. So, I guess my first topic I'd like to talk about is the starting of your music career, sir. How long have you been doing being a musician for?
Yeah, so I guess I was one of those kids who could sing before they could speak, or something to that effect. I've basically been singing my whole life, and I've been interested in music since I was very, very little. I started off with just the stuff that you would see on ABC TV, and then as I got older, I started getting into classic rock, starting with Electric Light Orchestra, and then going into Fleetwood Mac, and then Queen, and then the Beatles, and then everything kind of exploded from there. So that was when I was around 7 or 8 years old. And around that time, I decided, I didn't just like listening to music. I liked singing it as well, and I really wanted to be able to play an instrument. So I picked up guitar for the first time when I was 9 or 10, and played it for a little bit, but I didn't really have the discipline at the time. So I stopped for a few years and then switched to piano, and then school took over. But by year 9, year 10, by the time I was about 15, I was back on guitar, and I'd bought my first proper electric guitar on a trip to America, and came home and just started playing non-stop. And it was around that time that I started playing Guitar Hero on the side, and that was what actually got me into a lot of the prog rock artists that you and I seem
Yeah.
to really like, Liam. So it was hearing a live version of The Spirit of Radio on Guitar Hero 5 that introduced me to this fantastic band, which is now one of my top three bands of all time. It's them, it's Rush, Queen, and the Beatles. But yeah, to answer your questions, I was doing so as early as age 7. I was doing not school plays and not school musicals, but school soirees. And these were like showcases where you could get up and sing one song or play one song, like little mini recitals. And I just kept doing them. And then by the time I reached like my late teen years, and I reached like the last few years of high school, I'd started writing my own songs, and I was able to play those songs at the soirees, and I got really good feedback. And so I just kept working on it, and I kind of knew that when I left school, I wasn't going to go into like a law degree or anything that the other kids were going to go into. I was going to carry forward with music. So my first gig that was more than and that was like a proper gig, like more than just half an hour, more than 20 minutes, was 2 nights at the Abbey Road Cafe in St Kilda, and predicted, of course, it was 2 nights of Beatles covers. I didn't get paid for them, but it was at that time I just wanted the experience, and I loved the idea of putting together two shows and having different set lists for the 2 nights. So I think across 45 or so minute sets, I played about 30 Beatles songs. Um, and then later that year, I won a competition, which got me my first proper paid gig the following year. And I started my music degree in 2014 and started playing live gigs at the same time. And they pretty much just kind of ran parallel until I graduated, and then I just kept on doing what I was doing. So
Nice, 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 nice. So, that kind of answers all of my questions. Is there a dream venue you have in mind that you would like to play once COVID is over? So maybe if you start performing overseas, is there a venue overseas that you've always idolized and wanted to play?
Oh, well, there's plenty of venues within Melbourne and the world over. Like, it kind of goes in tiers. Like, at this age, to just open for someone at the corner hotel would be a dream. But I would love to headline a show at like the National Theatre, which is a 500 seater in St Kilda. And obviously, the big one in Melbourne for me is the Palais. I can live without playing Rod Laver Arena, but one day I would love to play the Palais Theatre. And then obviously interstate would be things like the Opera House and the Enmore, and like all the great theatres that Australia has to offer. In terms of overseas, there's not too many of like the big kind of venues that I have dreams about. Like I kind of just want to play things like the Orpheum and the smaller theaters within the States, if that's even a possibility. Or even like the Hammersmith Apollo in London would be a dream. But right now, the most feasible one is I think is there's a lovely couple called Devora and Bill Goldman who are regulars on Cruise to the Edge, and I met them the year I went on Cruise to the Edge, which was 2017, and they have like a little mini festival on their ranch in Tampa, on the weekend leading up to the cruise. And they've said as soon as I finish this next album of mine, and as soon as the borders open, I'm welcome to go back there and play, and play with like some local musicians from Florida and Ohio, and basically they'll provide the band and I'll just provide the tunes. So yeah, that's kind of my dream venue at the moment, is just to get back to Florida and play for all my prog friends.
Yeah, sounds great. You know, that would be sort of your first sort of taste of playing in America would be over in Tampa. So you might get a whole bunch of new fans over in America once you play it.
Well, I do already. I did play. I did play on the Cruise to the Edge last time. I played in like the late night live jams. So I got to play like Thick as a Brick, and I got to play Open Up Your Eyes, and Synchronicity by the Police, and I got to sing a bit as well, and got compliments from everybody from Patrick Moraz to Pat Mastelotto.
Wow.
And yeah, every time I pass seriously, buddy, if you can get to the cruise next year, it's the best week of your life, especially as a fan, because you're literally all in the same boat. And it's like, hey, Tony Levin just walked by, and every time I saw Pat Mastelotto, he'd be like, hey man, you're a really great singer.
Yeah.
So and through doing the two albums, and just by it being out there, I have had a few fans in America, and a few like fans in the weirdest places. Like there's kids who discovered my music in Norway and decided to cover one of my songs at their high school graduation, which still blows me away. But
Wow.
I didn't even know about it until they sent me a video like a week after they'd done it. But yeah, obviously, yeah, it's very the people who listen to my music, the audience is out there, but it is very small. So I just over the next couple of years, and with the next few releases, I'm just gonna keep building that up. And when I've got enough money to go overseas or go even interstate at this stage, I'll play wherever people will have me and wherever people will listen.
Yeah, seems like your fan base obviously is very big here in Australia, as obviously I know, and also it's pretty much scattered across the world. So you're pretty much welcome anywhere you go. Really?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I don't really have. I wouldn't come. First of all, my dad and I, who has been my biggest supporter, we don't like the word fans. We consider our followers kind of part of the family, because it certainly looks like a lot, but I'm mostly known. I guess most of the people who listen to my music or know of me are from Victoria, because that's where I've played mostly. And then there's a handful of people scattered around Australia. And I'd say there's probably about as many people in the rest of Australia who know about me than there are in the rest of the world. So
Yeah.
but that could very well change. My publicist is based in Sydney, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully you start doing up in Sydney. I know Entangled want to start doing interstate ones as well.
Mm.
I know they were talking about that before the pandemic. So
Mm.
yeah, always an interesting question in the prog community, especially within Genesis, of course, is you always see those people arguing about like who's better, Phil or Peter, or even in Marillion. So where do you stand in this debate? Like, which side are you on?
Okay, so here's my experience with Genesis. Oh, I first discovered them around the time when I was discovering a lot of classic rock bands, and we had just gotten a DVD player. So this would have been around 2003, 2004. and we were getting stuff like Electric Light Orchestra live at Wembley, and Fleetwood Mac The Dance, and Queen live at Wembley Stadium. And then one day, Dad brought home this DVD which said Genesis live at Wembley Stadium, and I knew who Phil Collins was because I knew In the Air Tonight, but just based on the fact that his name was on the back, I at first thought like Genesis was like some kind of music festival with Phil Collins as the headliner. And then I popped the DVD in and watched and started to fall in love with the songs from that era, like Mama and That's All, and Abacab and Home by the Sea, Invisible Touch, all that stuff. And so I pretty much grew up as a kid and as a preteen with the Phil Collins era, and it really wasn't until I got into like my teen years that after discovering Rush and getting into Yes, that I decided to go back and give the Peter Gabriel stuff a chance, because like I knew it was there. It just didn't really seem pertinent because it wasn't because they didn't seem to play any of that stuff in the later sets, in the later DVDs. But I think by that time I was ready for something a little different, and my music teacher was telling me about who had grown up in the Netherlands in the 70s during like the Gabriel and the Hacker period. He started telling me like, no, don't write that stuff off. There's actually something really good there. And so it took me a bit of time to get into it, but I'm so glad I did, and they're absolutely one of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
from all over.
Yeah, definitely. Genesis were my first prog band that I discovered, actually. I used to be a heavy radio listener, so I was very much against old music. Like, whenever my mom would put on the 80s radio, I was like, I'll turn it off, turn it off. But then my mom showed me, I think when I was 12, she showed me the music video of Sledgehammer about Peter Gabriel. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I went back to Foxtrot and listened to Watch of the Sky, so the iconic opening track from that album. And that's pretty much how I found love for Genesis. Listened to pretty much the prog era, and then started working my way through the 80s and then even to the 90s era as well, which has got some pretty hidden stuff, especially on the final album, Calling All Stations, from 1997.
Yeah, that's the thing about you, Liam. You don't discount anything. You consider the merits and of every little nook and cranny that a band has done, even the stuff that the fan base tends to reject.
Yeah, that's why Calling All Stations is probably one of my favorite albums, because it's a call back slightly to the prog era while still continuing the stuff that made them famous in the 1980s.
Well, there's some heavy moments on there, like Congo is actually quite it was actually kind of the closest, was a valiant attempt at trying to break into like the alternative rock market, I guess.
Yeah.
And certainly like Ray Wilson's abilities as a vocalist has never been in doubt. I think it was just by that point that when you've been going as long as you have as a band, eventually the hits dried up. And I think, yeah, it's certainly not something I would revisit, but it was worth the attempt, and I'm glad it exists.
Yes, and obviously, if you notice my vinyl wall, you can see I've got my Marillion, Big Country, Rush, Blancmange, and Talk Talk. You mentioned alternative rock, and my first band that comes to mind is Big Country from Scotland.
Yeah, which sadly I haven't explored their stuff all that much. Like I kind of just, in my world, they're like a one-hit wonder and I think I did hear a song of theirs called The Journey, which came out a couple of years ago because it was on like a classic rock sampler.
Yeah.
But it's nice that before the pandemic they did tour Australia a few times, and I'm sure as soon as everything returns to some sort of normalcy, they'll be back again.
Yeah, definitely. My relative actually gave me a signed photo of the band from 1990, which was
wow,
a full band signed one, I was pretty fortunate enough to get that. I've got a couple of tour shirts, jumpers, vinyls. So yeah, he was moving out maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was almost thought he's going to give me his whole entire Big Country CD collection, like from start to finish, including like live bootlegs and all that. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't have that many signed items in my music collection. Most partly because I haven't had the chance to meet too many of my heroes. But even then, even when I have, like when I've been on the cruise, it's like I kind of wanna. I don't want to just come off as like a fan. Like I actually want to. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm a musician. They're musicians. I kind of want to be on the same playing field, and it's yeah, and to me, and also like the idea of a photo and actually having the one-on-one experience with them is far more valuable than just a name or a scribble on a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely for me because originally I was meant to be interviewing someone else that was meant to be in place of you, but they pulled out at the last minute, and it was actually another musician from all the way from Scotland who is starting out maybe last year. They are a duo group and they are techno, so underground techno of Scotland, which is apparently getting pretty popular there. So
Yeah, they seem to like their electronic stuff over in Europe, so that doesn't surprise me. And I
yeah,
think and given that the Scottish and the Irish love their beats and they love their dance stuff, like I play an Irish pub quite frequently here in Melbourne called the Fifth Province, and they go nuts for all the old Irish tunes as well as stuff like there's a guy called Jerry Cinnamon, who's kind of a singer songwriter, but uh, incorporates elements of trap and house into his playing.
yeah.
So
Do you have any
I don't know if that's
YouTube?
completely accurate, but certainly with his beats and his loops and stuff. But he's yeah, it's like going to a Jerry Cinnamon concert is like going to a rave. So yeah.
Yeah, on the topic of that, do you usually play any YouTube stuff on set list sometimes, or
Uh, uh, YouTube. I've done a few YouTube songs over the years. I was never a huge fan, but like I've got like some of the hits I got still haven't found. I've done All I Want Is You, um, Sunday Bloody Sunday, but
yeah?
yeah. So there's a few there. I did see the U2 3D concert film when that came out in IMAX, and I have a very vague memory of it, but uh, it was a yeah, it was a fun time, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of something interesting that popped onto mind when I was looking through the topics to do was the sudden shock of Stephen Wilson continuing the Jethro Tull remixes. I honestly thought he was done after doing so much, but after hearing that, after now knowing he's doing A, was certainly a big shock to me. What was your sort of initial reaction that Stephen Wilson was continuing the Jethro Tull remixes?
Well, I think it makes sense that he would continue at least with remixes in general because now that he's not doing any live work, that was always kind of his main source of income. Aside aside from doing yeah, because as far as I know, he wasn't any money he made on his album sales he would put back into the live shows, and so I think he usually just like breaks even after each album cycle. But the major another source of income for him is actually there's an interview I heard recently where he talks about like the process of going through and remixing everything and getting access to the masters and and he wants to try and do different things. Like he started off doing like the classic Crimson and the classic Tull catalogs and the classic Yes, but and then he started getting into stuff like XTC, and now he's just been doing the Black Sabbath catalog as well. So so I think it only makes sense that because that '80s material is quite different to the earlier Tull stuff that he would only be too happy to keep doing it, and even if at some point he stops, like they'll just get like Jacko Jaksic or someone else involved. Like Jacko did a great job on the Bursting Out remix from the Heavy Horses box set as well. So he's certainly not the only guy out there. But but yeah, to relay what Stephen was saying about box sets in general on this interview. In regards to which was about the Future Bites as well, and the limited edition box set of one. Basically, he was saying that the record companies are seeing this as like the last definitive version of an album that people will buy, and there is a market for older people who basically buy multiple editions of the same album. And they know that like within the next few years, CDs are going to be pretty obsolete. It's just going to be digital and vinyl. So they're just basically they're trying to get these as many box sets out now as they can. So as
Yeah,
cynical as that sounds, and like I'm a guy who still loves the CD as a physical format, but even I can't deny the beauty of a 12-inch cover. So
yeah, indeed. So it's interesting because obviously when I was talking about the A, I was also had in mind that you also listened to Broadsword on the Beach for the very first time, only recently.
yeah, just this week, as you were telling me to check it out. So uh, I didn't get through the entire second half, but there are certainly some great moments in there. And from a production standpoint, it's one of the best sounding Tull records I've heard. And I think a lot of that had to do with actually just sitting down with my proper headphones and actually taking it all in. And especially in lockdown, I've started to appreciate mixes a lot more and the process of mixing and putting what goes on the left channel and what goes on the right channel and everything that goes into making a song sound the way it does.
Mm,
It only just like I was just in the car on the weekend, and I only for the first time realized just how prevalent the shaker is in Down Under by Men at Work. It's going throughout that entire song, and it's funny without that little shaker, like the song doesn't sound the same.
mm.
Mm.
'Cause I know that's like Broadsword on the Beach is like highly regarded as one of Toll's best albums. It's like it sort of beats out Thick and the Brick and all that, some of the most iconic stuff. So yeah, so Um, do you think we will see other bands getting the same treatment? Like Toll and Marillion have been given this deluxe treatment. Like, will Genesis get this deluxe treatment with some of their back catalog soon?
I think it all depends on the record company, and I think they've repackaged they kind of already repackaged the Genesis catalog a few years back with like the 3 box sets, and those had like SACDs with the 5.1. So, and I do have a 5.1 mix of Trick of the Tail actually. Um, from what I've heard, I couldn't really discern anything incredible about it. So there are 5.1 mixes for all the Genesis albums, but I don't think it's something they're going to do again. I think that's pretty much like they've done and dusted, and their catalog is kind of set now.
Yeah.
So maybe like reissues of those sets, like the 2 disc sets and stuff. But yeah, I think as and yeah, I'm kind of over the whole over a lot of that as well myself. Like I don't really have any of the I don't really have any of the classic albums as box sets. I just have them either as a CD or an original vinyl or a reissue. So um, yeah.
I was thinking maybe probably one other band that might get it, but it's depending on how things will go. Is I was thinking Styx might get the whole catalog starting from Styx self-titled all the way up to now done in deluxe form because there's certainly a lot of stuff that is hiding, especially in the early years on the Wooden Nickel label that could be
Yeah,
done.
and I think though I think Wooden Nickels are gonna probably be that's like a whole other world, and I don't know. Well, it could happen if they find the right person, but even Kansas haven't really done too much in the realm of like 5.1 and deluxe box sets. So it definitely seems to be more of a British thing,
Yeah.
uh, especially. But yeah.
Um, so on to a different topic now. I saw Randy Feltface recently over at the Melbourne Town Hall as a part of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, and you saw Leno and Woodley. How did you find that?
I really enjoyed it actually. It was kind of an odd show. I wasn't like blown away or anything, but it's amazing. Just it's so hard to figure out like what's actually part of the show and what's unscripted because it is basically just structured chaos. Is basically the Lane and Woodley way of doing things. But I really like that they were able to update some of their older routines, like the Deaf Interpreter gets an update, and brought back Bouncy Rabbit, and they make reference to Russell of Thailand, who are
Leno
apparently
and
Russell
Woodley?
of Thailand. according to the commentary on the Land and Wooded DVD, Russell of Thailand is actually a reference to Russell Fletcher, who played Father Ricky. And I've met him. I met him years ago. Lovely, lovely bloke. And he was the warm-up act for Family Feud, and now I think he's the warm-up act for some other show on Channel 10. But yeah, I'm going to see Adam Hills next week, and I've just been listening to his audiobook to get me pumped up. And he is just such a great bundle of joy and just great philosophies of life. Yeah, things like don't be a dick, and even though he uses like profanity in his shows, it's only mildly, and he's all about just living life and just embracing the inherent joy in life.
Yeah. So I saw Randy Fartface in Melbourne Town Hall. This was my first time seeing him, as the last time I was actually underage, maybe off by 1 year. So I couldn't see him out in Northcote, but definitely was worth my money that I spent to go see him, because I've always seen him on YouTube and on TV and all that, and wondering what is the secret behind, the comedy of Randy and how he moves about. So I managed to get a seat in the front row, and whenever they had the intermission, I could actually see Heath running from points of the stage to pick up the next Randy puppet, which was a bit of a show away of the secret.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I saw Randy 2 years ago, and I booked two back-to-back shows in the same room. It was at the Town Hall, and I think the act before him was a guy called James Veitch, who's this British kind of lecture comedian. So he uses PowerPoint presentations and like keynote things. And so I was kind of up the back for that one, and because my brother and I were going straight from that one into Randy's show, we basically just went out of the room and came back in, and they put us right up the front as well. I think that I can't remember what that show was called, but it was something about the Book of Beryl.
Oh, the Book of Randy, I think it was called.
Well, at the time it was the Book of Beryl, and I think it was like Anti-Crisis or whatever it was. Yeah. Yeah, and there it was just one set, one thing for Randy, but there was a bit at the end where like Randy's puppeteer was revealed, only for another puppet to come up after the guy come to the front, and yeah, what can I say? He's a funny guy, and actually called on. He actually looked out to where my brother and I were sitting, and it was a little bit. My brother had actually said before the show started, if he calls on you, don't say anything, because apparently I can't be trusted. But fortunately my brother stepped in and was able to answer most of those questions, and wasn't particularly funny himself, but was able to help him be funny. So
yeah. So we obviously that same thing, obviously, where he picks from the crowd in the front. He did it twice. The first person said nothing, and he was like, "Oh shit, that's a bummer." And then me and my friend would see literally one spot next to the prime spot of being picked on. I was like, "Fuck, well, I wanted to do that." Oh well. Also, Sammy J was actually in the audience as well on the session I went in. I was like, "Oh shit, that's Sammy J." And I did not get a photo with him or talk with him whatsoever.
And he wasn't even pointed out or anything.
No, it would have been funny if he was pointed out there. Like if they agreed to it like beforehand or something like that. That would be funny. Or if he came up on stage or something like that.
Yeah, it's nice when guys go incognito like that. And comics actually go and see each other's shows, because there's not. I don't think there's as much camaraderie, I guess, in the music world, because we're always kind of working. We're always playing on the same night. So
yeah, definitely for something like Sammy J and Randy, who've been together since the days of Good News World on Channel 10. Still good that they're seeing each other, whether it be incognito or just reuniting on ABC Radio as well. As Randy has had a couple of times where he's gone into the studio where Sammy J works, and they've had a bit of a reunion almost as such. If you do listen to ABC Radio.
Yeah. Well, Sammy's doing pretty good on his own, and I guess, and even though Heath they haven't really done anything to get a lot together recently as Sammy J and Randy. Heath has done quite a bit in Sammy's like 3-minute ABC skits, playing with like a puppet of God, and like you can tell it's his voice. So
Yeah.
they still work together, but in more like a Forest of Dreams kind of scenario where it's like
Yeah.
it's more like Heath is working under Sammy's guidance
Yeah.
or ideas rather than it being an equal partnership.
Yeah. So I was recently called by you an old Tom in an Aussie's body. Do you care to explain further on that?
Yeah, well, basically you remind me of myself at that age, or maybe even a little younger, and it seems you seem to like all the things that like a British kid in the 80s or 90s or even the 70s would love, with a few Aussie things thrown in because that's just the way it is now. But I don't know. Does that come from like having? Do you think that comes from having British parents or English
Um,
heritage or?
so my heritage is obviously it's actually a three-way heritage. It's Scottish, British, and Irish. So I've got all the British Isles put into one. So
Mm,
I like stuff like Big Country. I was raised on Doctor Who and the goodies at a very young age. So I was exposed to it maybe when I was 5 years old. And that's why I love that type of stuff so much. So yeah, goodies is probably the earliest memory of the goodies was probably watching the two DVD set that my mom had and pretty much watching like Radio Goodies and King Kong and all those classic episodes. And then I went out recently, I think it's here. Is it in here? It's either in the rumpus room somewhere else. I bought the complete BBC episodes box set of the goodies, which is pretty much all the rest of the missing episodes put on there.
yeah, nice. One of my things I would love to get when I or at least rent or borrow something is this Monty Python Blu-ray set that came out a couple of years ago, where like they actually went to the effort of restoring all the original film and Terry's animations. Um, and at the very least, I hope like they replace what's on Netflix with that,
Yeah.
because to see something upgraded, there's just something beautiful about it. I know everyone kind of loves the old stuff, but if it was done on film, and you can actually go back and find the negatives, just do it, and
Yeah.
just upgrade the thing and make it presentable to like, because that's the kind of the idea with these box sets is like it's the definitive version of the record, as opposed to well, as if everything else wasn't but like, yeah, it's like the final version, like this HD version, like it's not going to get any better than like
Yeah.
1080p.
They did that with Doctor Who. I think they started doing it a few years ago with Doctor Who. I'm going to get my Doctor Who tab out. Oh,
Yeah, because I know they did. I know Spearhead from Space was the only one for a long time because that was the only one like entirely on film. But now I see they've been doing like the box sets, and I guess just kind of color grading the video and upgrading the film. Yeah,
I've
because
only
it's very strange the old because it's a little bit jarring, the old BBC productions where everything that was done inside the BBC studios was done on videotape, and anything that was done on location or exterior was done on film.
yeah.
So there's kind of a bit of a 50-50 split, and you can upgrade film and you can restore film, but you can't really upgrade videotape that much. The best you can do is just kind of clear it and I guess just kind of even trace over it, I guess. So
Yeah. So I managed to collect one of the box sets because I was missing some of the stories from there. I collected the season 18 box sets of Tom Baker's final season. And like you said,
nice.
how it's restored and all that, it looks much better than the standard DVD versions. And you get some really cool bonus features as well in them
Yeah.
that are
And
not.
that's not to say that the DVDs necessarily look bad or sound bad. It's just as the technology evolves, the product has got to evolve with it.
Yeah. And what else has been handy with the Doctor Who as well? They have actually restored episodes using animations. So pretty much lost episodes from the 1960s have been restored using animation, which obviously they took a
Yeah.
while to do, but they're worth the money as well.
Yeah, and certainly as more audio comes about, and things are still getting discovered, I guess. So there's more and more sources, and it's I guess the Australian like Doctor Who collections, I guess, has been invaluable to a lot of that, because a lot of because when the BBC wiped the tapes, but the ABC didn't.
Yeah.
So mm,
Another sort of famous actor, Rowan Atkinson, obviously very iconic for two main TV shows, Blackadder and Mr. Bean. Which one do you like
mm.
better?
Um, I've always enjoyed Blackadder, and I've never really been a massive fan of Mr. Bean. The one scene of Mr. Bean's that I absolutely love is the Christmas Salvation Army band where he's conducting them. They do "God Rest You Merry Gentlemen," and it's just and that's just more like a joke on conducting, if anything. And it's not how conducting works by any stretch of the by any means, but it is really clever. I just feel like everything else is. I've just haven't really had an interest. I guess I watched the animated series as a kid, but I just find as an adult I prefer Blackadder because it's a lot. It's not as juvenile and there's more nuance to it.
Yeah, definitely very funny. And Blackadder, obviously, I think for me, Blackadder is more my favorite, especially the final season in World War One.
Yeah,
Has got a
I
lot of memorable moments, especially when they kill off the
yeah.
pigeon in the second episode.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my English we studied World War One and the Vietnam War in like year 11 and 12, and my English teacher, who was I think from Newcastle, he showed us the corporal punishment episode, or at least the first half of it, and I think it was through him that I watched Blackadder the fourth first, and I still have not watched the first season, and have absolutely no intention of ever watching the first season,
Yeah,
because from what I've heard, it was just it's not the same show, and like to me, it's like 2, 3, and 4, and the Millennial Special, and that's the Blackadder canon that I've grown up with, and I've been pretty happy, and I've got a lot of joy out of those 19 episodes. So
yeah. So obviously there's that. There's also Rick Mail and Adrian Anderson, like the young ones. Bottom, have you had much experience like watching the young ones or those type of shows?
I tried to watch the first episode of the Young Ones. It was just too erratic.
Yeah, because I heard like lots of people, especially my best friend Eric, who's a big fan of Rick Mail and Bottom and the Young Ones, and I got introduced to those type of shows through him, and they're really not really funny shows. So,
Mm,
so
yeah, it's
yeah.
not too. Mm.
Let's see what else have we got. Working as a musician in the current climate of 2021. So obviously, working in well, especially in 2020 when the whole world was in lockdown. How did you think you fared?
I think I'm very lucky to be in a position where I was still able to keep working on music from home, and I was surrounded by a loving family, and I just basically just used that time to build up my fan base online by playing every week, with doing a live stream concert every Wednesday night for 35 weeks straight, and that gave me the discipline, that gave me the drive, it gave me something to work on every week, because otherwise there was nothing to do. So so having that, and I'm amazed at how much just the world was able to adapt to online stuff. Like I did trivia nights over Zoom and over, and yeah, so there were trivia nights, and there were just movie nights over Zoom as well, and it was just that it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, so to speak. And it's all provided some great inspiration, and yeah, it's the end is not the end, basically, and that's
Yeah,
kind of one of the things I'm working on at the moment, and we just got to roll with the times, and I know that and live music will return as it has over here, but yeah, I'm really proud of what I managed to accomplish in those months.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the pandemic. Really, we wouldn't have developed this close friendship through music and through prog and through the quarantine streams. I think for sure.
Well, yeah, I could say the same for a lot of people. Like a lot, like doing the live streams and corresponding that with the Bandcamp release. I actually managed to get a few international viewers, guys from the UK, guys from Italy, and it was just um, so yeah. So certainly there were some people who just just discovered my stuff and enjoyed it quite a lot. So.
Nice, 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 nice. Do you have a favorite lyric by any artist that you just remember at the top of your head? Like,
Well, I'm currently. I recently did an interview for a friend of mine, Pauline Bailey, who's writing a book about the Melbourne blues and roots scene. Her second book, in fact. And over the phone, when we were doing the interview, I quoted "Entre nous," the chorus, uh, which is and so basically, yeah, just a lot of Rush's lyrics have really resonated with me, and especially from like the Moving Pictures, Permanent Waves, Signals era. I think that's like Neil at his lyrical best, and really just tapping into those emotions, and it's why when I discovered them, they became my favorite band so quickly. It was when I found Rush, it was like I'd found the band I'd been looking for my entire life.
yeah, that's the thing that could go with me with prog as a whole because I was getting sick of commercial radio. And no offense to commercial radio and anyone who's doing commercial radio these days. As much as your music is great, it's what is best of Rush. I mean, let's be real. No one, there's not going to be another Rush.
No,
That,
and even the other bands in who have come over here and I've seen and stuff. It's like it's still one of my dreams to put together a Rush tribute band at some point, and I have the people, and they are interested, but it's just a timing issue. It's just about getting all of us in a room where it's not going to interfere with our day jobs, and find the time, and then we got to get like a lighting guy and a sound guy and a promoter to make it happen. So there's a whole lot. That's a whole thing, and really the focus right now is on my original music. So
yeah.
and finishing this album that I've been essentially commissioned to write. Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's the first I've heard of an Australian Rush tribute band ever.
No, well, there was one in the '90s, and I met the lead singer. They were called Hemispheres,
Oh.
and I met many years later. So they're around like late '90s, early 2000s, or something like that. And I think in around 2013, I went to see this band called Lost Patrol. At the time, their lead guitarist was Simon Croft, who is the go-to guy for lead guitar on We'll Rock You the musical. So he's played like the Australian production, the UK tours, and he's done the show all over the world. But that night he was playing Cream songs, Zeppelin songs, Gary Moore songs, Bad Company songs, and the lead singer was this guy Fab Versace. And the name Fab Versace rang a bell in my head when I saw that. I was like, where do I know that name before? And I remember reading like on a very old website from the 90s, like Rush Tributes of the World, there was one entry for Australia, and it was Hemispheres from Melbourne, and so I spoke to him about it, and he said, I said, didn't you used to be in Hemispheres? And his actual quote was, yeah, but I called it hemorrhoids because it was such a pain in the ass.
Oh, that's funny because obviously, like, I've never known that there was one, but I've just never been bothered to research into it. Like, I know of the Modern Day Warriors; they're a Canadian Rush tribute band, and I actually got involved with their quarantine project for their cover of Untitled Chapter. I air guitar the solo. So I have to send you the link to that one, which I'm very quite proud
it's
of.
because the fan base, the fan base exists, Liam, especially for a band that's been around for that long. Certainly more than like some of the newer bands came along in the '90s, and then Because maybe if Neil Morse had stayed with Spock's beard, maybe they could very well have continued on to bigger and better things. But I think the fact that like they went through so many lineup changes, or just the one even, meant that kind of knocked them back a few steps and kept them from reaching like a massive a for lack of a better term, more commercial appeal. But Rush have always had an audience here because it's just never been enough to justify the cost of bringing the entire set over and squeezing it into the Palais or into a smaller venue. So I've like for years I was running the We Want Rush to Tour Australia Facebook page, and there were a number of like little internet campaigns here and there, and there was at one point there was a crowdfunding campaign because it was actually shut down by Rush's management because it was in between tours. But yeah, like there were a number of reasons why they never toured here, and it wasn't just like a lack of interest or a lack of popularity. It was more of a logistics issue than anything.
Yeah, which is probably another reason why Marillion is never going to tour here in Australia. No matter how much we want it, it's money and it's cost and everything, which is very sad.
Pretty much, yeah. Like that, just yeah. Like Steve Rothery has hinted at like about maybe bringing out his own band and doing like a Fish era set, which could work because you find Fish stuff a lot more than you do H stuff in Australia because they actually had the deal with EMI. But still, that's like if you weren't around at the time in Australia, you probably would never have heard Kaylee or any of the other stuff. So it is kind of a small group. Yeah.
Definitely hearing also the news that you told me how Rush were planning to bring Roll the Bones here to Australia. That was interesting.
The source is not fully verified. Like it's from the guy who works at Station to Station in on Spencer Street in the mall there. So I don't want to go into that too much, but suffice to say, yeah, if they it could very well have happened. And there were several times when there were several attempts to bring them out here, but it's just they just were met with I guess logistical issues at every corner.
Well, I guess definitely. If you've seen the bootleg footage from when they toured Japan for the very first time for Grace Under Pressure, you'll notice how Neil's rotating kit actually didn't rotate because obviously they didn't have the funds to bring that portion of the kit. So whenever Neil did Red Lenses, he would literally turn around and would play the electronic side facing behind the crowd. So
yeah, which apparently is like against Japanese culture or something, and that's supposedly the reason why they never went back to Japan.
Yeah, they could have easily done that here in Australia if they didn't have the money to bring the rotating kit. They could have just bought a regular kit and done the same thing.
Yeah, but
that could have worked.
Yeah, but I think even look at something like I Love You Man, where they're basically playing a club show. They're playing in They filmed a little cameo in I Love You Man at a venue in LA called the Avalon, which is a real club, and it's like the size of like 170 Russell here. And you can see they've got like the chicken rotisseries on one side and the amps on the other. But even then, like that's not like a real Rush show. That's basically just them acting, and it's an interpretation. It's like movie magic, so to speak. So like they don't want to do they never wanted to do anything by halves. And like I know like Getty would have loved to have brought like the final tour to all over the world, but by that point Neil was just like really tired and they were all having fatigue and stuff. So I'm glad that they bowed out when they did. I think it's better that we complain that they never came out here when they were at their peak, then they did come out here and they weren't at their peak. Like that was the case, I guess, for me, like seeing Yes in 2014 to like a half-empty Palais Theatre. By that point, it was their last tour with Chris, and they were just really slow and not all that loud. And I think it was kind of depressing in a way to watch that show.
Especially my friend Neve, who I was talking recently about, is a big fan of Yes, and most definitely. I think the way they are now, they are fine, but definitely the way you saw them in 2014 is quite sad to see. A band of a former show.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and yeah, like even 2012 was better. I think maybe just because I liked Fly From Here, and that was the new record they were promoting. But I wish I had been old enough to see them on the when they came out in like 2003, and I was only just 10 days shy of my 18th birthday when John Anderson played the Corner Hotel,
Oh, wow.
so I couldn't go to that. Mm.
Yeah, I wanted to see the return of Steel Town tour for Big Country again. Was 1 year off 18. I could have had the time of my life. And
Mm.
I think they were planning to do 2020 here, but obviously COVID happened, so I couldn't do that. And
Yeah.
recently, Steve Hackett just pulled out as well for
just
2021.
just today. So that's just been postponed. But at least like they still want to bring it out, and it gives us something to look forward to, and it gives people like you and me something to think about, or
Yeah,
just something to look forward to, even if it is off in the future. But there's plenty of things happening now, and there's plenty of things that I'm excited about as well. So.
obviously, Entangled doing their next show, which is exciting. I wanted maybe they'll
Yeah,
do
I
it.
played with Richard last night, actually. We played a little venue called the Drunken Poet. So Richard is now my keyboard player in my band. So he's going to be joining me for a show on the 28th of May at a place called Arco Bar in Heatherton.
Yep.
So he's going through the songs now, and he's a bloody good musician and a joy to work with.
Yeah, you're very lucky to be
Yeah,
working with them. I mean, from
yeah,
what I saw, definitely when I went that one time over last year, and yeah, definitely they're a
mm.
great bunch of guys entangled, and hopefully they can do something similar to maybe Steve Hackett's show for the next show, so we can get like a mini experience before seeing the big thing.
Yeah. I must say, Liam, I can't talk for much longer because I've got a show tonight for the St Kilda Festival, and I've got 3 shows in the next 2 days. So, how much was there much long? Any other stuff you wanted to talk about?
No, I guess not really. Nothing else I can really think of that is important. So, guess I can
Yeah.
end the
Well,
podcast here then.
I really do appreciate you uh, talking to me and giving me a call and sharing your insight with me. It's great to see that the future of classic rock is in safe hands.
And definitely for prog rock as well, because I thought it was going to die out, honestly, because not seeing many people my age listen to it, and then obviously Neve, obviously having a
Yeah.
big
Well,
obsession
it
with.
still exists, but it still exists. It's like, but mostly in the metal community here. Like we've got Carnival and Acolyte and Caligula's Horse and Towhider. So certainly those are the guys who seem to listen to it more. And I guess kind of what I try to do with my music is bring more of the songwriting element of that classic stuff. Um, because I'm not like a whiz or like a shredder by any stretch of the and I'm not like a classical composer, but I do love how the idea of like no boundaries and just songs can take on different styles, and even some bands that like you wouldn't consider prog like did that like obviously Queen were the big ones, but Elton John you couldn't really call him any one thing, and
Jethro Tull maybe
yeah.
even as well. They started blues and
Well,
then
Jethro Tull had those odd time signatures as well, and but yeah, certainly the later stuff and even the earlier stuff was basically just kind of just uh,
bluesy.
based on rock, but was just pushing it a little out there. And
Yeah,
even Pink Floyd, the most famous progressive rock band in the world, like, never did anything too complicated musically, but sonically they were always pushing the boundaries. And
yeah.
one of these days, I gotta get myself. That that's the one thing I would like to see is like a Blu-ray release of the big four Pink Floyd albums: Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals on the Wall, in 5.1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember seeing Selling England. They did a release maybe around about maybe 5 years ago. And that I saw that at JB Hi-Fi here in one concert.
yeah, the Super Audio. Yeah, well, I've got the remake. I've got the. I tell you what, actually. So I've got this. This is the show that he was going to bring out if he had come out last year, and this is for those just listening. This is Steve Hackett's "Selling England by the Pound" at Spectral Mornings live at Hammersmith, and that one is the 5.1 on that one is by Steven Wilson, and from what I've heard, like it's a massive from the reviews, it's apparently like a massive improvement on the original Sailing England 5.1 mix.
Wow.
And just from listening to the show, I can tell like Steven actually really knows how to use the space and put things in the back, and yeah. Well, yeah. So I gotta go, man, because I gotta get a bite and a feed, and then I gotta hit the shower and get on the road.
Yeah.
Such is the life of a rock and roller.
The life of a
But
rock and roller.
yeah. But thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah, definitely for coming along. And yeah, so that's the end of everything. And catch you all later. See ya.